SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello all, welcome to this course on digital accessibility. I'm Dr. Richa Gupta, Assistant Professor at the Department of Human-Centered Design at IIIT Delhi. This is week 1, lecture 2, and today we will discuss about several definitions and terminologies which will be commonly used throughout this course. I would like to start discussion with the design thinking process. I'm sure you might have heard about these words like brainstorming, do some innovation, have what is your product vision? What if I tell you that there's a systematic process which stitches all of these concepts together and presents to you a very step-by-step process in order to achieve innovation through various tools? The same process is called the design thinking process, which is a human-centric approach to problem solving, which emphasizes on understanding user needs. It involves prototyping and testing the solutions before rolling it out to the market. One important aspect of design thinking process is that it is a non-linear, iterative process. This allows for the designers and engineers to challenge their assumptions and beat their own biases and own stereotypes with the process. Helps in refining ideas through experimentation. Design thinking process is not just for designers. It allows for problem solving in different domains of industry. Several managers use it for strategic problem solving as well. There are 5 stages to the design thinking process. The first one is called empathize. In this step, we try to empathize with our users, where we try to gain a deep understanding of the users for whom we are trying to design the solution. The second step is defining. We try to clearly articulate the problem based on our understanding of step 1. The insights that we have gained on step 1. The third step is ideate. Here we try to generate a range of potential solutions. All of these tools which you might have heard about, ideation, brainstorming, Scamper, all of these tools are likely used in this step because we are trying to generate multiple ideas without any filter in this stage. And in the later part of this stage, we try to narrow it down, converge, and pick a few ideas which we develop into concepts. Those concepts are then prototyped. It can be a low fidelity or high fidelity prototype. What is the meaning of a low fidelity prototype? A low fidelity prototype can be cheap, quick prototypes. So be it paper prototypes, it can be detailed sketches, it can be wireframes in the case of applications or web pages, etc. So in order to create a tangible version of your ideas so that you can visualize your ideas in this phase. In the last phase, we try to take our prototype to the users, the same users who we empathized with in the first phase. And we request them to use the prototype and gather feedback from them. And based on the feedback, we then analyze our solution. As I stated earlier, that the design thinking process is a very much iterative process. That means, for example, if in the step 2 define phase, we are unable to define the problem very clearly, we can always go back to the empathize phase and re-understand, revisit the contextual questions that might have remained unanswered. Similarly, if we during the testing phase we realize that there are several use cases or features which are not working, which are not answering the user needs as required, we can go back to the prototyping phase, maybe use another materials, maybe use other aspects of features, etc., add more features, subtract some features, and maybe take it back to the users. Or we can also go back to the drawing board and redefine the problem itself. Similarly, there are, as you can see, several loops throughout the process, and that is what it makes it very flexible and iterative and a non-linear process. Design thinking is also, many a times you might find on the internet, there is also a double diamond process which is also commonly used when you look up design thinking. The idea behind this double diamond process is also the same, but it involves these two diamonds where there are basically 4 steps. Discover, which is similar to your step 1 empathize, define, exactly the same as step 2. Here you develop or ideate, and then you deliver. Here you converge, right? You test and converge. So basically in the deliver, the prototyping phase and the step 4 and step 5, the testing phase are kind of combined. So the core idea remains the same. And you can also see that it is a divergent convergent. So from step 1 to you diverge into understanding many user needs, then you define, you converge on one problem statement, then again you diverge and come up with many solutions, and then again you converge into a final solution. What are the benefits of using the design thinking process? It helps improve user experience because by focusing on user needs, you will be able to deliver on user expectation with a much better focus. It increases chances of innovation because of its iterative nature. It reduces risk because early prototyping and testing helps identify potential problems before significant failures and then allows you to resolve them before a large amount of money or resources are invested. It enhances collaboration because design thinking process encourages teamwork. It allows for increased business value. By focusing on user needs, you can increase customer loyalty and market share. There are 3 lenses of design thinking which can act as filters, particularly during the ideation phase where you're trying to converge on some of the concepts. So for example, when we have during the ideate phase, we have developed 50 ideas. Now, how do we converge them into 2 or 3 most relevant? So there are these 3 filters which we can use in order to arrive at the innovation sweet spot. So what is the meaning of which are desirability, feasibility, and viability? In desirability, we try to understand, we put each idea to test on all of these 3 benchmarks. Whether will users like it? Do they like it? Feasibility relates to technical feasibility. Should we do it? Whether the current technology allows it to be prototyped, to be manufactured, etc. Can we do it? Economic viability of it, the business perspective. Do we have the resources to realize it? Do we have the funds to disseminate it? So all of these aspects can help you understand, analyze your ideas and converge on some good concepts and then take it to the user for testing. This is another diagram depicting the design thinking process, which talks about, again, various aspects. So where, for example, during the empathize phase, we learn about the audience for whom you're designing. During the define phase, we construct a point of view that is based on user needs. During the ideate phase, we brainstorm and come up with creative solutions, as many as possible. And then we try to converge, filter it into 2 to 3 concepts, which we take it to the prototyping phase. Here we build prototypes. It can be low fidelity or high fidelity. Then we take those prototypes to the user and ask for feedback. Another common terminology which is used around design thinking, and particularly in the case of digital products, is user experience and usability. And both of these terms are quite confusing, and people get confused between what is the meaning of both and how they differ and how they overlap. So we'll talk about those aspects as well. User experience, or long for UX, is a commonly used term in digital workspace and digital product development these days. There are several facets to it. We'll have a discussion about it. User experience refers to a person's overall experience and feelings when interacting with the product, system, or a service. And UX design focuses on creating positive and meaningful, these are very important aspects, experiences for users by ensuring products that are intuitive, enjoyable, and meets their needs. There are these 7 aspects or phases of user experience. First is useful. Whether your product, your digital product, is it useful? So if a product isn't useful to someone, why would you want to bring it to the market? If it has no purpose, it is unlikely to be able to compete for attention alongside a market full of competitors. It is worth noting the utility or the usefulness from the eyes of the beholder, from the eyes of the user, the potential customer, and things that can be deemed useful if they are delivered non-practical benefits such as fun or aesthetic appeal as well. For example, a computer game or a sculpture may be deemed useful. So utility-wise, you may feel that, okay, what function does a game serve, right? But probably it doesn't serve a utility, but it is fun for the user. It delivers on the emotional needs of the user, right? I want to engage with something fun. So, and thus it is meaningful to the user. Going back to these words, positive and meaningful experience. Thus, it is not just about the utility, but what also is deemed useful for our user. So, understanding the user is very important. The other aspect is usable. And mind you, there is a difference between the word useful and usable. Usable means that revolves around usability of the experience. Usability is concerned with enabling users to effectively and efficiently achieve their task or objective with the product, whether they are able to effectively complete the objective of the product. A computer game, again, which requires 3 sets of control pads, is unlikely to be usable, as people for the long time being leased only tend to have 2 hands. So if it involves a very big interface with many buttons, probably it loses out on the fun aspect, right? So it is also important to understand how one aspect is also kind of adding on to or taking away from the other aspect. Products can succeed if they are not usable, but they are less likely to do so. So some cases it may be possible that they succeed, but less likely. Poor usability is often associated with first generation of a product. Think of the first generation MP3 players, right, which lost their market share as soon as more intuitive, usable products like iPods came into the market. The third aspect is findable. Findability refers to the idea that product must be easy to find. And in the instance of digital and information related products, whether we are able to find the content within the digital product also. So findability is important. If you cannot find a product, you're not going to buy it. You are unlikely to use it as well. And it is true for all potential users of the product. If you picked up a newspaper and all the stories within it were allocated page space at random, rather than being organized into sections like a sports section or a local news section or a global news section, business, entertainment, etc., you would probably find it very frustrating to read the newspaper, because you would need to scan the entire paper if you just want to read about what was the India's cricket team performance in the previous match last night. The fourth aspect is credibility. It is very important to create trust with the users, right? So there is a very popular saying that fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice, shame on me. So today's users aren't going to give you a second chance because they have so many competitive products in the market. There are plenty of options, nearly every field, every domain for them. So how to make your product credible enough that the users latch on to it? For a sustainable business development, product development, that is a very key concept to keep in mind. Credibility relates to the ability of the user to trust in the product. Not just that it does the job that it is supposed to do, but will last for a reasonable amount of time. Right? Also with particular information related, for example, web pages which pertain to news. If after a point I realize most of the news articles on this web page are fake, I probably will lose trust. So the credibility of the sources is also important in case you are sharing information. All of those contribute to the user experience. The fifth is desirability. Desirability is to some extent usability, all of these aspects, credibility, etc., is there. But desirability is something which caters to people's emotional needs, their aspirational needs. Many a times there are products which function exactly the same, which try to deliver almost the same level of experience in terms of its usability, usefulness, or credibility, or the interface, valuability as well. But there may be some desirability or aspirational value attached to it. For example, iPhone amongst the smartphone users has gained that desirability status. People aspire to buy it, despite the fact that there is very little differentiable value or usability features associated with those smartphones in the competitive market of other smartphones. I will talk about valuability first before going on to accessibility. So valuability is also an important part of the product experience, particularly in country like India, where people associate or assess the value more because they are paying their hard-earned money to gain that value. Right? So it is very important that your experience is also valuable. It is value for money, it is value for time as well. Right? Lastly, coming on to our topic at hand, accessible. Is the experience accessible? Sadly, accessibility often gets lost in the mix of all of these aspects of user experience. Accessibility is about providing an experience which can be accessed by a full range of abilities. We are not just saying that we are catering to people who are disabled. We are saying that, okay, the experience is accessible to different kinds of abilities. If you refer back to our intro lecture, we spoke about different kinds of temporary or situational abilities, such as being blinded by the sun or having a cast on one of the hands. That means you have limited ability in some cases or sometimes in your life. How can the experience be comfortable to you in those times as well? And by doing that, designers automatically extend the solution's access to people who have permanent hindrances, like people who are amputee, people who are permanently blind as well. Moving to another commonly used word, which is usability. How is usability different from user experience? Based on the previous slide, I think it is quite clear that usability is actually a subset or one of the facets of user experience. Usability involves understanding of navigation of the app, accessing various aspects, various pages of the information, the workflow, etc. Familiarity, be it context-dependent familiarity, information-dependent familiarity, or just the predictability of what will come next. That is also part of familiarity. It should not shock or surprise users every now and then. There has to be a consistency that also adds value to the familiarity aspect as well as to the predictability aspect, which in turn also enables error prevention. If I understand the interface to the extent that I can predict what to do next or what would come next, it is likely that it would reduce errors. Also, the visual clarity, the layout, all of those also contribute to error prevention. Feedback mechanisms also add to usability, whether adding green ticks after completing a task, be it the clink sound of completing a task successfully. All of those feedbacks allows you to understand or user to understand, okay, the task is now complete successfully. Also, flexibility and efficiency is quite an important aspect of usability, that it allows different types of users to access and work with the interface. For testing usability, we can make questionnaires around or tasks around learnability, how easily users are able to onboard your product, right? What is the learning curve? Is it too steep? Is it easily learnable? Then there are also questions around efficiency, whether the users are able to complete tasks effectively or not. how high is the memorability of the various aspects of your application or your product, whether it requires too much to remember, too much to recall, then it may be too much cognitive load on the users. So the cognitive load assessment is also important, which can be done through this part. Focusing on reducing errors and providing feedback to users whenever they have successfully and correctly completed tasks, or even telling them when there is an error, they have missed out on something. So just to give you an example, I think you might be familiar that now in Gmail, when you have to send an attachment, and in the body you write, please find the attached file, but you forget to attach the file. It always gives you a prompt now that in the body it says that you have attached a file, but you have actually forgotten to attach the file. That means the interface is trying to remind you and error correct your behavior, which is a common behavior, right? That people tend to forget attaching the file. And then overall satisfaction. All of these aspects also contribute to this aspect, but also various aspects of visual clarity and usability and how comfortable it is to use, how much maybe web bandwidth it is taking, how easily the pages are loading, how smooth the transition is, how smooth the onboarding is, how smooth the learnability curve is. All of those factors contribute to this overall satisfaction. And there may be other aspirational aspects to it as well, which can also be part of usability evaluations. Coming to our term, which is accessibility. So accessibility is actually a design attribute that ensures usability of a product, experience, or an environment by reducing hindrances in interaction. So first step is to identify what are those hindrances in the interaction, and then we try to reduce them through our process. As a result, we improve the usability of the product. This also pertains to ensuring compliance. So, just to give you an example, if you look at this image, what do you think about this? Are these stairs really accessible? Because there is also a ramp, and these are very aesthetically pleasing, and the stairs are also there. Initially, it looks that the architect has made a very nice effort to kind of merge both kinds of navigation methods, where the ramp is very aesthetically combined with the staircase. But on a closer look, you can see that the flight of stairs are very much disconnected. The handrails are not available on all the staircases, and various other aspects. So it may not be truly accessible, but it's definitely a good attempt. But we also have to see and understand as designers whether in our attempt to design something which is very pleasing, we are also creating barriers for other set of users. So for example, in attempt to integrate a ramp in the staircase, are we creating an hindrance for, say, people who are elderly, for whom it may not be possible to climb these set of stairs here, then walk somewhere here, then again hold the rails here. So it is like jumping from one place to another, who may need support on the handrail, but they can climb the staircase slowly, but at least maybe with support. So we have to think about with a wider lens, think about the solution with a wider lens. In order to understand what are the overlaps and differences between accessibility and usability, this is a very useful kind of Venn diagram. So as we discussed, usability pertains to ease of use, broader audiences, satisfaction, efficiency, user-centric design, and various aspects. Accessibility also pertains to validation tools, standards, assistive technology, access to contents, legal requirements, and both of them contribute to, to a better user experience. Now moving on to our another set of commonly used terms. So I think we discussed about the term universal design in our opening lecture, where architect Ronald Mace coined this term in the 1960s. And we will also introduce the term inclusive design. We have already spoken about the word accessibility and what are the differences and similarities between these terminologies. Universal design actually pertains to a set of design guidelines to make your solution usable to the greatest extent possible by everyone. This is an important aspect, regardless of their age, ability, or status. However, what is commonly seen that some people may have unusual or conflicting access needs, and mostly it is not feasible to address absolutely every need for every person in every situation. For example, a person with low vision needing bright light in a classroom and a person with photophobia needs a dim light in a classroom. What happens if they are in the same class? How do we enable the lighting system in the class? So many a times that would be the case. So one solution fits all approach, which is pertaining to the universal design approach, may not be very feasible, but it is a well-known approach, and the guidelines, which we will also discuss as part of this course in forthcoming lectures, can be a usable set of guidelines to create inclusive or come up with inclusive ideas. Now coming to the term inclusive design. So this is a design methodology that draws on human diversity by including and learning from people with a range of perspectives, understanding why and how people are excluded, and creating diverse interaction possibilities to include diverse people. So here what we are saying that, for example, if we understand that in an interaction, if we enable closed captioning, if we enable audio feedback, if we enable visual feedback, if we enable tactile feedback, that means we are enabling multimodal feedback, then probably we are able to inform different types of users with different types of disabilities about the various functioning and features of the application or the product. So this process can be used to create products, interactions, experience, and spaces. So what we're trying to do is now we talked about the design thinking process, how we can tweak the process to make it more inclusive, to come up with better ideas which are more accessible in nature, right? So in each step, if we can say during empathize, if we try to recognize inclusion and learn about diversity with an intent, it would be useful. In the define phase, if we broaden the persona spectrum, we will talk about this word, persona spectrum, in the forthcoming lectures, and we'll come back to this diagram. In the ideate phase, we can think of universal design solutions. The universal design guidelines can be helpful in this. We will talk about this in forthcoming lectures. In prototype, we can utilize sensors and different kind of hardware and software aspects in order to come up with multi-sensory designs. And in the testing phase, we try to include special needs users as well, pertaining to and avoid excluding them from our user groups. So just an overview that universal design is a noun, and it talks about design that works for all, everyone in all scenarios. Accessibility is a design attribute which makes, and it's a design quality which makes an experience open to all. Inclusive design is a human-centered design process that embraces diversity. To summarize, in this lecture, we talked about definitions of design thinking, user experience, usability, accessibility, inclusive design, and universal design. The next lecture, we will discuss why accessibility matters. You can search keywords around design thinking process. There is a very popular IDEO design thinking toolkit which you can access. You can search keywords for usability, user experience design, accessibility, and learn more about these topics and words. There is a very well-known book called Design Thinking for UX Beginners, which can be a good reference. Thank you all for listening, and we will discuss why accessibility matters in the next session. Hope to see you all again.